Don't forget these things, Diane. Okay, let me get that off the screen. So good news is I am more rested after arriving on Sunday night. I've almost acclimated from the East Coast to your time zone. And I think by the time I leave, I'll be fully acclimated, which is great. My name is Mike Rubilato. I'm the Vice President of Operations at Cherry Road. And as Aaron had mentioned, we are your implementer to really guide you through this journey over the next 18 to 24 months. In that, I wanted to take you guys through some highlights of this new system before we start going into how we're going to go about doing this. So I'm going to touch on a few areas from employee self-service to time and absence entry and approvals, to your personnel actions, invoice payment, planning and budgeting. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on all this, but I did want to show you a few things. So let's see if I can get over to our login. And I love doing this when people are watching me. It always works out great. Almost got it right. And this is one of our demonstration systems that we use, but this would be how an employee would be logging in. In addition, we have the opportunity to discuss single sign-on, meaning when you sign in for the day as an employee with perhaps your network login and credentials, then you're just clicking an icon to get into Oracle. Okay, you don't have to sign it again. So let's go in as this employee. And I am Jane Smith today.
Morning, Jane.
Thank you. See, I'm the lovely Jane Smith. All right. So a couple things about employee self-service. So here now we are putting through security, establishing a role that will exist for everybody in this room. There will be a baseline role for employees to have access to information and to conduct business in the system. And what are the kind of three things? And if your role is different, perhaps you're folks in this room work in HR or finance, you'll have additional roles and additional access and see other icons here to be able to transact. But as an employee, there's a few things that I might want to be able to do. I want to be able to see information about myself and about what's going on in things that are happening to me in the county. I also want to be able to perhaps initiate a transaction. Something's changing in my life. I need to add a dependent. I'm getting married. Or you have responsibilities. You have to enter time. You have to make leave requests. Okay, so all of those three types of things are things that you might be able to do. And I think from what I've heard, being able to do this online is very new, right? Being able to go in and initiate this and look at this stuff as an employee. So let's say I wanted to go in as Jane and look at things I can do related to my pay. And again, not all of this is going to be applicable. Part of what we'll work on with you is what are the things that are meaningful to you and that you want your employees to be able to see, or that you want to be able to see. And as you can see, when I go in to look at payroll, I can go in and look at my pay slips. I can adjust. This is really related to whether I want direct deposit and manage that. I can go in and look at my year-end documents, my W-2s. I can go in, look at what my W-4 information is and make as well. So if I want to go in and look at a check, that wasn't bad. Now I'm seeing, as you can see on the left side, I can go look at checks from prior pay periods. You're seeing on the top right a summary of that pay period and what my deductions were and so forth. And then I can go in individually and look at in a graphical representation those different kind of categories that are related to my check. Okay. One of the things to just point out with this is you also see another way to be able to access this information on the left if you're the employee. But I want to hit one more thing in this demonstration, which is this learning assistant that you see down here. So a big part of any implementation we do is about training. What's the point of us putting an awesome system together that's configured to meet your requirements if nobody knows how to use the system, right? So we put a tremendous amount of emphasis on change and training, which Sharon really drives through the project, working with a lot of folks throughout that. Well, one of those tools is this learning assistant. And what this learning assistant does, think about what happened if you were here for your last go live, or imagine what will happen when we go live with all these things changing, a new system. And employees are going to be able to, we're going to provide training, so we'll get them as prepared as we can. But there's no way questions aren't coming in at Go Live from an employee. How do I do this? 3 months later, questions are going to come in. New employees will come into the county. They'll need to know how to do things. Well, what the Learning Assistant does is it shows all the different types of things I may want to do as an employer or that I'm responsible for, and gives you the ability to, for example, with absence management, if I wanted to create a request, this brings up a dialog box and it walks you through that transaction. And this is all configurable. We can make this reflect language that makes sense to you and to your employees. And it walks you through that transaction and all the things that you have to click to get there. And I'm not going to continue through it, but the important note on this is once you complete that transaction, you're doing it in production. You're doing it in the system of record, okay? So if you're an employee who's got it, training went great, you understand it, you might never use this. But maybe you're someone, there's a transaction here that you don't do for every few months or you don't need it. Well, this gives you the ability live. So what does that mean? Less phone calls coming in to HR, finance, and procurement, and personnel folks about how do I do something. Well, we can point you right here and show you exactly as an employee how to do it, walk you through it step by step. Okay? So let me move back over here. Does this look familiar to anybody? All right. I've been educated. This is the buff, right? Is that right? The one's the buff. What? When you can find it. And my understanding of this process for entering time, which I'll focus on, and we do have an absence sheet here too, is that you're going into Excel or wherever buff resides, you're keying in that time, you print that out, that goes up to a supervisor for a wet signature, and then that goes over to payroll. So all across the island, the county, this is happening, getting to payroll for review and validation, okay? And then it gets keyed in, my understanding, by the entry folks in those respective departments. Well, within Oracle, you're going to be able to go in your phone, your desktop, iPads, sitting in coffee shop. As long as you have internet access, you can go in and do that time entry directly into the system so that you'll be able to see what I've entered, what time is it, regular, is it overtime, is it some special type of earnings, and what that time is and what that looks like in this case for a week. And then that can get routed via the workflow within Oracle to your supervisor. So the person today who's doing that wet signature, this goes up to them and they see on that top cutout that dashboard of who are the people that I'm supposed to be reviewing. And the bottom half is you can go in and look at those individuals and you can reject that time, you can approve it, you can approve it in mass if you want to. And then once you've approved that time, we can route that to payroll for review. So that paper is gone. You don't need to use that anymore. Absence, I started to show you a moment ago in the system, beginning of doing that absence request. Well, once you go in, this is what you'd be looking at. And you would select the type of leave that you want to take. In this case, I'm saying vacation. It shows me my balance of how many hours have I accrued and remain in my vacation balance in this case. I can enter in the dates that I want to do this, that I want to go on some type of a leave. And the hours, doesn't have to be full days. And it shows you that how much you're using. And again, this can be routed to your supervisor to review or reject, approve or reject, do it individually or in minutes. So again, we kind of remove the need for the buff and others and your absence forms, and we can do all this stuff within the system. Does anyone recognize this one? Infamous Form 13, right? See, I'm educated quickly here on what's going on. So the Form 13 covers a myriad of transactions at the county, right? So all kinds of things, from hires to transfers, step change, grade changes, all kinds of things. And again, this gets filled out in the departments, wet signature. This then gets sent in, from what I understand, again, centrally to one place for HR to review, but we don't stop there. Pop it back out again, right? Copies going to some places, maybe it goes to a more regional data entry, but you're back to entering that information in, right? In a very kind of manual process. Well, in Oracle, this is similar to what I showed you a moment ago, but this is someone who has a little more access, right? They have maybe some responsibilities as that personnel person excuse me, in the departments who initiates Form 13 today. Well, they'll be able to go in and select the type of transaction they're going to do. Do I want to hire somebody? Am I going to be transferring somebody? Am I going to promote or unfortunately maybe terminate somebody? And in that process, you're entering the necessary information into those transactions. Workflow again pushes that to supervisors, the appropriate resource to be able to approve that, or then it could go to HR for final approval. Once it's finally approved, it's now entered into the system. It's in your system of record. So all those things you're doing on Form 13, you're keying those in one time into the system and using workflow to get those approvals. Okay, very cool stuff. Now, I can't talk about HR all the time, right? So from invoice to payment, this is another area from what I understand today. Every invoice that comes in has to be manually keyed into the system. And then there's also an approval process that has to be followed within the system. Well, this is giving you a quick look at within Oracle. We can scan those invoices into the system. You guys didn't use it all up on Diane before. There's not, I don't know what to do over here. I'm going to have to do some dancing soon. I'll leave that to Joe. I'll leave dancing to Joe. On the invoice side, we're going to capture that data, scanning that in to create those invoices. And then those can be validated. And again, workflow will take it to the appropriate approver to authorize that payment. Okay? And last but not least, budgeting. So today there's a couple spreadsheets that you utilize that get pushed out to different departments. Those get filled in. Those get shot over to 2 people, I understand. Are they in this room? Those poor budgeting people? So 2 folks in budgeting who then take this and key this in from consolidate, collate, push this stuff into the system. And I'm assuming this is an iterative process, right? You don't get it the first try. So you have to go back and forth. Well, within Oracle, we can essentially recreate that type of data entry model in the system, right? That you'll be able to put stuff in. And then once it's in, the budgeting people can start focusing on looking at the numbers and not actually trying to rekey or consolidate this information. And we can do this in multiple terms. And even cooler is once we've done that and you start looking at actuals in your account in your budget year, we have cool dashboards we can build, right? So we have graphical representations of the data to show where those expenditures are. Compare that to what was budgeted. And you can look at, there's, I don't want to say infinite because I'm putting Doug on the spot when I say infinite or unlimited, but there's a lot of places you can go with dashboards and showing this type of information. Okay. So
I'm going to clap for Ted because he's watching from home.
So with all this, of course, we got a yay, I think. With all of this, it'd be great if we could just snap our fingers and be done in a week or 2, but that's not reality, right? There's work to do here. And I'm going to let Joe come up and we're going to walk through how we're going to get there.
Thank you, Mike.
Joe, I'm going to bring this over here. You need to stand within it right there.
Yes.
Right there.
How about a round of applause for Mike and those highlights? Mike only went through a handful of highlights. And we have around 20 different functions that we're implementing. And so those 5 highlights explode into, into many, many more highlights when we get through with these 20 other functions. But what we want to do is implement them methodically so that we enjoy the excitement of each of these functions in a...
Just on Zoom, they're having a little hard time hearing you.
Okay.
You're drifting back.
So that we enjoy the excitement, not all at one time, but little by little. How am I doing now?
So great.
All right. So our first phase is budget preparation. So it's not a lot of these functions, a little bit, and that's a good start. That way we can keep our focus and make sure we get it done right. Our second phase will be finance and procurement. That's a little bit more exciting. We've got a lot more things to look at, to do. We have the accounts payable, accounts receivable, cash management, inventory, purchasing, a lot more to get excited about. A lot more highlights will come in phase 2. But the most impressive phase will be phase 3. That will have the most highlights whatsoever, as Mike just demonstrated. Yeah, all right.
Phase 1's the most exciting.
Yeah, I think Ted wants phase 1 the most.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I
We have competition already. That's great. That's great. All right. So phase 3, of course, as you just saw in some of those highlights, a lot of opportunity with the paper to systems. All right, now how are we going to get there? We've broken it up into 3 phases, and we have 3 separate timelines for each of those phases. And so overall, this is going to take 22 months, right? A long time. Prepare yourselves, yes. But phase 1's going to go live in November 1, and that's about 7 months, right? We started in April, and we're underway. Phase 2 is going to go live July of 2025, and that's about 14 months from now. And then phase 3 will go live January 1, 2026, and that's about 20 months from now. But the phase 2 and phase 3 are about 14 months, but when you take everything and combine it together, it's about 22 months. How are we going to accomplish it? Well, our methodology has 4 stages: planning and discovery, design and configuration, testing and training, deployment and support. Each of those stages is a gateway. We complete our tasks for each stage, make sure we dot the I's and cross the T's before we get to the next stage. That way we know that we have a sound solution by the time we get to go live. Planning and discovery is where we identify your needs, your requirements. Design and configuration is where we design it. Testing and training is where you get involved. You are actually hands-on testing and making sure that the design meets your requirements. And then, of course, we go live from there. Now, stage 2 and stage 3 are really where you get involved. So if we were to take and slice this, that's May and August for phase 1. That is November and May for phase 2 of 2025, and May and August of 2025 for phase 3. So let's go to the next slide, and you'll see that the key milestones for your participation are business process validation, system integration test, and user acceptance test. So 3 test cycles that we get you involved. And the question was asked, can we revise the design after each of these test cycles? And the answer is yes, and that's the whole purpose. So we'll come up with a preliminary design. We'll do business process validation of the preliminary design. Then we'll update that design, and then we'll conduct system integration test. And then we'll come up with the final design, and that's for user acceptance test. So you can see as we go through our testing and we identify improvements or other needs, we'll make those changes, and then we'll continue testing in the next test cycle. All right, so we do all that to get to the end and have a successful go live. Now, the thing to realize is that these test cycles will be occurring simultaneously for all 3 phases. So it's going to be a very demanding effort of your time or requirement of your time. And so we're going to plan everything out, give everyone advance notice of when things are going to happen, and then if we're all in sync, it'll all come together at the end. All right, so I will hand it off to Sharon, who will guide you through the reach out.
So just so you guys know, people are texting me about how excited they are and can they go to all the future training that's going to happen. So so people are getting excited and Zoom has.
Yeah. Good morning, aloha. Thanks for having us. I am feeling very special and lovely. We've had a great warm welcome from y'all. Do I need to step in? Have I hit my mark? Usually my voice is not an issue. Y'all could probably hear me on the mainland, so I'm not too worried about it. but we want to make sure everybody does get a chance to hear about this, because I am certain that all of you are really excited about change coming into your world, aren't you?
Yes.
All right, good. Right answer. Good answer. We're off to a good start. That is my role on the project, engaged here along with my partner, Aaron. Lots of people will be involved, but he's going to be a primary partner in engagement in this. So anytime that we are about to launch off into change, that one does not discover new lands without consenting to lose sight of the shore for a very long time. Now, I know that can sound a little bit scary, but there's also an element of sort of excitement and anticipation that comes with that. And we're going to talk about how we are going to safely navigate those waves of change, how we stay connected, and how we all get from where we are today on our island of current state, our shared base of knowledge, and navigate to our future state and what it's going to look like then. In order to do that, we have a very deliberate methodology that we follow. It starts with a change plan. And the change plan, think of it as our navigation system. It's our GPS. It's gonna drive how we get from one point to the next. It's gonna lay out the who, what, when, where, how are we gonna do this? So it really gives us a roadmap of where we're gonna go. And a key element of that is leadership engagement. And you've had a wonderful example of what we look for in leadership engagement today with Deanne and Diane and Aaron, letting you know that there is a great deal of confidence in the decision that y'all have made, the direction that you are going, and what your future is going to look like. And that confidence generates confidence, doesn't it? Because if it's not there, thank you, Mike. I mean, if it's not there, who's going to want to get, jump in and join us? And it is. We're going to have a little fun with this. I know that's hard to imagine change and fun in the same sentence, but it happens, really. And that confidence really does not have to show up by going, we are confident that we know everything right now. It's the confidence that you're going to get where you need to be safely with everybody connected. It's saying, I can't see this land either right now. I don't know what the outcome looks like right now, but I have confidence in the people on this project, in the people in this room, on the people online, that with everybody engaged, we're going to come to what's very best for the county. And that's what we're going to end up with on the other end. It's the confidence that we're going to find the right path for us. And with that, we're going to bring you along on that. Now, part of that confidence is generated in knowing what's happening. And so to make that happen, we have a very robust communication plan. We want to make certain, and this is our mantra of change. So take this in, you're going to hear it a lot. We want to have frequent, honest, accurate communication that goes out to everybody in a variety of ways, because we all take information in differently. But we want to make sure that you have lots of it, because if you don't, it generates a void. And what happens in a void? It wants to be filled. And we will fill it with our own story. And that story will very often elevate our level of anxiety, what we've imagined it's going to be, what we think could be possibilities, and we're going to get all wound up in that. And we don't want that to happen. We want you to know exactly what we know when we know it. It may take a little while to get those answers for you, but even when we don't have the answers, we want to stay in touch, let you know where we're progressing. What are we doing to get those answers for you? So that you will have that. And if, are any of you in here worriers? Any warriors here? Yeah, okay. I think there's a few hands not going up that might be. I saw some eyes like eyebrows right there. If you are worrying, you're going to worry, we at least want you to worry about reality. So we're going to make sure we keep that void filled with lots of communication. But a real key element of communication is two-way communication, and that happens through a readiness network. If you're not familiar with what that is, we're going to make sure that you are. But we are going to be connecting with probably some of you and others in the county throughout all departments and areas to find what we call readiness coordinators. Those are going to be people that are very close to the users of the system, which eventually will be everybody, but that has good proximity that you can go to, that you can connect with and say, have we thought about this? When is that going to happen? How is this going to work? And they can bring that back to the project team, either get an answer or let you know we don't have that answer yet, and let that flow back to you. And that becomes continuous throughout the life of this project, so that you have a way to get information, to be involved, and to get excited about what's coming, and to process it, to have time to process it and get ready for it. So you're going to be a big part of this all the way through as well. One of the first questions we know we're going to get is, how am I going to know how to use this system? How am I going to get connected to this new technology? So first message out here, y'all, spread it to everybody. Anybody who's going to touch the system is going to get training before go live. We talked about not having all the answers right away. What we'll get back to you on and continue to let you know is, how is that going to happen? When is that going to happen? How will I get signed up for it? How will it roll out? We're going to have all of those details out to you, and you'll have that training. And our training is not one and done, because I don't know about y'all, but I can go through training, and most of us, particularly as adults, it doesn't really sink into us until we can get our hands on it and start using it and build that confidence and that comfort level with it. So Mike showed one of the elements of training that we get very excited about, and that is the learning assistant, because that is a really cool thing to be able to use, y'all. I get excited about it. Hope y'all will too, and I think you will when you get to use it. So, you know, you go live. I'm going to use an example of vacation because it's very near and dear to my heart always, but I love my job, Mike. Just want you to hear, I love my job, but I like taking a vacation. So you go live on your system on the HR piece of it, 4 months go by, you get ready to ask for some time off, and you have no clue what you learned in training about doing. Okay, maybe y'all do, but I wouldn't. You pull up your learning assistant, it walks you through every step of it, and the awesome part is when you hit submit, that wasn't an exercise in how to do it. You've done it. You've connected in your system, and it's off, and you're waiting for your manager to go thumbs up. So that's pretty fantastic, we think. We're also going to look at other ways that you get support. What's a network of where you can bring your questions? Where can you get some help as you're learning this new system and building your own confidence level and your ability to use it? And we're going to share that with you. Those will be things that we continue to share as we go through that. When we follow this methodology, we use these tools, we stay connected all the way through this project together, it means that we are going to arrive at your future state, all together, all safe, all intact. You'll have a new system that's been delivered. You will be trained, and users will be ready to adopt and use it. As you get more comfortable, you'll actually embrace this system. And as Diane pointed out, and Adam knows from Oracle, you're going to have an opportunity for continuous improvement. It is not a static place that you end up in your future state. So with that said, you're all fired up about change now, aren't you? I'm going to turn it back over to the lovely microbiology.
I was just about to say, you can take vacation in 22 months in 1 day from now. So, okay, last thing I'm going to cover today is around the org chart, okay? So Joe, I took you through some highlights, some cool things that we'll be able to do in the system. Joe took you through how are we going to get there from where we're putting scope into phases, some of those individual steps and key milestones. And then Sharon, tough to follow, just came in and explained OCM or change management. We call it organizational change management, and I say OCM. But we just walked through that and kind of took you through what that looks like. Well, it's important that we have governance on this project. That's kind of the last piece of the puzzle. And here's the structure of our project. And there's 3 things I want to focus on. One is around leadership. The other is around how we've structured the teams. And the third, I do want to talk about Oracle a little bit more. So Sharon really brought this point home about the importance of leadership. And we have our executive sponsor and our steering committee that is a huge part of this project. It's important for us when we encounter issues, perhaps changes in business processes that get escalated to that steering committee or executive sponsor for approval, that we have their engagement. But also that engagement goes beyond just helping us solve some problems. It's pushing out those communications and engaging with folks during town halls and other things that will get set up. So that leadership is critical. From a structure of the project, you'll see a lot of red boxes and gray boxes. The red boxes represent Cherry Road Oracle. The gray box is the county. And as Sharon mentioned, there's that partnership. Sharon mentioned herself working with Aaron. Joe's working with Kay. Each of our functional folks that are back here looking really excited on the couches over there right now. Those folks have counterparts there from a business functional perspective, from a technical perspective. They have counterparts they work with, and we're truly partnered with you. And that's important to get us through the implementation, but it's also important for knowledge transfer that you understand that. And we'll go into a lot of discussions about that in the future. And then the last piece is up on the right here. You see Oracle CSM. So along with Adam, who was great to get kind enough to get out here for us, we have a CSM, a client success manager from Oracle that's assigned. Diane mentioned this before. Oracle invests a tremendous amount of resources into the product, but also into this project, where they're going to be supporting us throughout this project. While we talked about best practices inherent in the system, Oracle, beyond even what Cherry Road's done in implementation, they understand what SI system integrators like ourselves do across thousands of implementations. So they help provide best practices on how to approach things. And when we run into issues, we need support from Oracle, okay? So it's a critical part. They help navigate as changes come into the system. They're communicating with us in this team. So it truly is a 3-legged stool. It's not just about the county and Cherry Road as your implementer. Oracle plays a key role in this. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Diane.
All right, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Sharon. As I mentioned earlier, we really hope this helps build some excitement. I mean, this is big for us. This is huge changes. It's a long road ahead, a little bit of a hike to get there, 18, 24 months. But good things come to those who work hard. Work hard, stick together, and it's worth the wait, right? So this system is about an easier connection. It's a connection for us. It's a connection for you. It's connecting our financial system and our human resource management. This is one link that gives us access to the process and data we use every day. This is our county system. This is our one connect point. So connect is our system. So we've mentioned a lot about, we've talked about ERP, you've heard that. You've heard Oracle, you've heard Cherry Road. What you need to know from here on out is our system is connect. That's our one-stop connection.
Love it. Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Sam. Okay.
T-shirts.
Deanna wants t-shirts, so we'll be sure to get some t-shirts. And we'll work on that. But thank you everyone for listening. It's now time for Q&A. So I'm going to bring Aaron back. He's going to kind of manage us through this process.
I want to just say I had this whole skit planned on how we were gonna
No.
unveil,
No.
our
No.
connect.
So we had this skit and someone got scared because then there's too many people in the room.
She said my acting skills wasn't good enough, so I couldn't. But, so we're gonna open up Q&A, and again, we don't have a lot of those real in-depth technical answers yet. We're all gonna figure those out together, but does anybody have any high-level questions right now? We have the team here. We have Oracle, Cherry Road, the little that we know, but we're happy to share. So if you have any questions. Oh, Zoom, if you're on Zoom, just raise your hand. I think Kevin can see you or
type in the chat.
type in the chat.
No, read first.
For instance, the issue they have a separate third-party software.
Yeah, so the question, just so everyone can hear, was around our ability to integrate with perhaps other databases of information, in this case, ID cards. And yes, we can absolutely integrate with many different systems, and that is in scope for the project to ensure we have those integrations. So I'm sure there's information you guys need as employees are hired and terminated, and some of the roles that they have may drive security. We sit with you, understand those requirements, and then we'll build out the integration to send that information.
You talked about single sign-on. Will the system be able to integrate with multiple Active Directory domains? Within the county, we have multiple departments, and some departments have their own domains. Not everybody is hawaiicounty.gov.
Great question, and something we'll definitely be getting into. The extent of my knowledge is gonna be yes, and that's because I looked at Ray Sanko, who's our technical lead.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. So the question was, can we integrate with multiple directories for Active Directory purposes, multiple domains? And yes, Ray, as I mentioned, is your technical lead for the project, and Ray will be part of those conversations. So yes, we're able to do that.
Yes.
Hi, I work for the fire department, and our firefighters have very complicated pay scales and differentials. Do you guys have experience working with the many different types of pay that they get?
Yeah, so 3x24 is crazy stuff of schedules. Absolutely. So question being,
Thank you. No, I was gonna say repeat the
question being
first.
from folks about firefighters and the complexity of their pay and being able to do that. So yes, there's the ability to set that up. And then one really powerful tool in Oracle that many other vendors don't have, are what's called fast formulas. It allows us to essentially build in kind of logic and functionality, but in a, I don't want to say custom, so we don't use that word, configurable way, but it's a very powerful tool. So it allows us to do a lot of formulaic stuff if we can't outright configure it with what's there. So yes, but we have experience working with that, working with police, working with first responders and things of that nature. So definitely unique schedules and pay rules all the time.
We do a lot of differential calculations in Excel and then put those directly into the cash right now.
When we get towards that August, September timeframe, and we start, this is predominantly the finance, procurement, and budgeting team here, and with Martin. So in the next 2 days, you can always bug Martin, who handles core HR. But we'll be sitting down and going through those specific types of things, seeing what you're doing there, and seeing how we can build that into the system. Okay. You got it?
Good question so far. Oh, come on, guys. No?
Coming in
So
online.
I had
Yes.
a question about the budget go live day and how we're gonna be doing budget in the fall, because they kind of seem to be about the same time.
Great question.
So yeah, so the question being around the timing of budgeting, that our go live seems to be right in line with your next budgeting season, and that is the intent. So what we do want to make sure is we're ready for that, Deanne, too. So Joe showed you guys before our stages of the methodology: planning and discovery, design and configuration. So we're in that planning and discovery stage right now. And by the time we get to the end of that, we want to make sure that we can deliver for budgeting in November what's needed to get into your budgeting season. So yes, that is the intent, and to be able to do your next budgeting season in Oracle.
Oh, exciting.
So the schedule was planned to be able to start with budgeting. It's ambitious. We are going to try our very best. We're going to work really hard to get there. If something comes up, we'll let you know. But yes, budget kickoff, new system. Fingers crossed. With help from all of you, and of course, our budget team is super excited to change first. Right, Lisa?
I don't think,
See?
man,
Thank you, Ted.
I don't think you got that
Oh,
applause
yeah,
last
see?
night.
No, I
Connect
didn't.
first, connect
She,
first.
she gave me a stink eye
Yeah,
last
I
night
don't
when I
think you
tried to
got
do
that
my
applause.
skit.
That was much better than what you got
Sorry,
last
it's
night.
a skit. You guys gotta do this for me.
I'm just trying to protect.
Okay.
It was that bad.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was that bad.
I missed it by 5 minutes. Any other questions? Anything coming in online, Ted?
Sorry. Every department has their own different processes and procedures as far as like leave and how to prepare things in that. So for our office, we have secretaries that are assigned to several attorneys, and they're the ones that actually process the timesheet and things like that. Would they be able to have access to specific people on a limited basis to be able to continue to do those things for them?
Okay, so the question being if in some of, in this case, corporate counsel, but special areas where the secretary is allowed to do the data entry for those individuals? Okay. You want me to tackle this one or you want to?
I got
it. Okay. go ahead.
Okay, so we anticipated this question last night. Not everything's figured out yet, right? And so one of the big things Sharon mentioned is with a new process comes change. So there may be things we do today that we won't do tomorrow. So not gonna say, you know, you won't have the ability to do it, but we also want to think of this is when we get there to leave, that's your portal. I know we're kind of stuck in that mindset of how we do it, but it's yours. It's your leave. It's super easy. It's right there. You put your leave in. So we'll tackle that. It might change, but it's going to be a change to get us to better, right? Whatever it is it's get us to better, and we'll do it with your input along the way. Okay.
Got a question here?
I recently had to go into planning for some kind of payment stuff. Is it going to be integrated or is it have to do it?
It's a good question. So from a conversion perspective, that's what we'll kind of, oh, I always forget it. My God, it's only the 5th time in a row. So a question around data still needs to be pulled from the Wang system, and will that be brought forward into this implementation? So that falls underneath the conversion data migration category of implementation, okay? And we'll definitely be looking from a scope perspective of what exists today. Now, there are some implications of trying to bring data in from all these different places going way back in time, but we have some strategies. We've dealt with this in a number of places. So we'll go through that. We'll look at that. At the end of the day, we do want to make it as easy as possible to get at data. So we'll make those decisions as we get there, but we will be assessing that at least from a scope perspective. Okay. I need one more question, so at least I can try to get it in here right. So the question being, yeah, so the question being, are we going to eliminate timesheets? What we were presenting is the possibility exists to do so, okay? If you're asking me, I think that'd be awesome to get rid of physical timesheets. But as Diane said with her question around folks doing entry for others, all that becomes part of that business process review and design and validation that Joe mentioned before. So we showed you the capability today. It definitely is something you can do, and we see a lot of folks doing. But we'll go through the process the same way for everything we highlighted today to make sure that it's everyone knows what we're doing and why, and all the steps that go with that. Okay.
We have multiple grants at housing, and I'm just wondering if we could pull information from different the dashboard for one grant, so we can see that, you know, what this is.
Sure. So the question being with multiple grants and multiple systems, from what you're saying?
From
Different modules that those can be seen in a single, like one place to be able to look at a dashboard. I'm going to probably have to defer to my friend Nira over here, but Nira? Okay. The answer, yeah, for everybody was yes. So, good answer, Nira. Good answer. Yeah, I'm gonna do my best. So for the folks who couldn't hear Nero and the folks online, there is one of those functions that Joe was talking about is around projects and grants. And you do have the ability to go in and be able to see those grants, and if they're, crossing years and multiple sources and so forth, you're going to be able to get at that information.
I have a question in the chat.
Yep.
This is kind of technical. So, when budget is implemented, how are the finance and procurement and HR and payroll processes to be tied from the existing system, which is Eden, to Oracle?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is part of what we're going to go through. And because we know we're bringing budget, or our intent is to bring budgeting live, we're going to need to be integrating with some of the existing processes temporarily, right? And how we're getting data and how that stuff gets brought in. So that's not an uncommon thing that happens. And then as the Oracle phase is complete, we move to getting that information and data from Oracle. So it's going to be a little bit of kind of massaging that in the short term temporarily, and then moving to the permanent solution over the course of the other go lives. And we'll need to go deep into that when we probably would need a sidebar, to be honest with you, Kelly.
Another question from the chat. Are we going to have historical information still available with Fresh? And if so, for how long?
Great question. So I kind of hinted at this a few minutes ago, but we will go through from a conversion perspective and look at all of the data that's there. There's always an option for folks with historical data to keep your existing system as a reference point, kind of cut it off, no more new entry goes in there. There's also some warehouse capabilities that Cherry Road has that we can bring data into. We can actually link that data with the Oracle system as it goes live for reporting purposes. So the answer ultimately is we're going to need to figure, to make that determination, but we have options to discuss as we go through conversion. Okay, and for each of the phases, that is a conversation that we have. Any other? Sure.
Yeah, so I understand this is cloud-based, and so if there's a internet outage or something like that, is there any version that you can
So question being, since this is cloud-based, if there's an internet outage, would you be able to get at it? So essentially, you can get at this. You need internet access to get to it. But in the event, let's say you had some type of, I don't want to use, let's say outage at the county, okay? You actually could access this from home. As long as you have internet access, you can get to it. Okay, but you do need somewhere to have internet. There's not an offline version that you could work on that would then update the system. You do have to have access to get to it. Okay.
Thanks.
Centralized resources. And I know there's the learning system, but that's specifically to how things are done within the system.
Yep.
Just wondering if other departments would like to reference something else.
Sure. So the question being, if there's county-specific policy, procedure, documentation that may not be inherent in like the learning assistant that I showed you, can that be stored? And the answer is yes. Through the kind of learning management program that Sharon hinted at, we can make those kinds of decisions, and we can do it in a way that even within the learning assistant, let me take one step back. For each employee, when we lay out training, we're going to have essentially for them a learning management tool that we're building out for you. It's not part of Oracle's learning management, it's part of what we're building out. And that gives an employee access to multiple things. One could be the learning assistant that I just showed you. There's simulators we can use. There's places we can put documentation, as you're referring to, that they can get at. We can put videos out there to show people how to do things as well. So we can provide a one-stop shop. The thing we want to make sure we're doing if we do that is we are utilizing the Oracle Learning Management tool as well. Because our focus is very much on training you on how to use the system, but we can piggyback that for some of what you're talking about. We just have to go through that. But we don't want to do it at the expense of not using learning management within Oracle. Okay.
So real quick, I just want to be clear on the question that was asked about access to our data, our current data. The answer is yes. Just want to be sure the answer is yes. How we get there and what that looks like, still yet to be determined, but just rest assured that that answer is yes.
Thanks,
No,
Diane.
no. Okay.
Another one came in?
If the recruiting and onboarding modules are included in Oracle, is there a document management system in Oracle to manage this?
Okay, so from a recruiting, I still think we're going through our process to determine for recruiting and onboarding the role of NeoGov in this project. So that's still something that's under discussion. Within Oracle, from a document perspective, I mentioned to you before, you can associate documents with transactions as you're going. But I don't want to sit here and tell you that what you purchased is a document management system in the purest sense. Okay, so to be clear on that, no. But as far as the documents you can bring in, yes, you can bring in those. We can create what we call documents of record within the system that folks can fill out that we can associate with transactions as well. So does that, Martin, am I saying that accurately? Okay, all right.
So what he's saying is that laser feature is what it is as a storage for our documents, we will still continue to use that.
You could, and you can integrate with Laserfish as well, but again, Oracle, I would never sit here and tell you that's a document repository.
Not a
Yes.
question, but just a statement. I think this is super exciting, and I understand the logic of the budget and finance and then HR, but I really wish HR was.
Well, I'll be honest, it's a great point. And to be honest with you, provide, I know it's not a question, but a little logic behind this. But the way we staggered this is we wanted to try to hit your budget season. We wanted to hit your fiscal new year, and we wanted to hit a calendar new year, which is important when we're, as an integrator's perspective of trying to implement large scale HR payroll systems, going on a calendar new year does make things less complex. I don't use the word simplify, it makes things less complex. So that's part of
I'll
it.
just say, the same thing happened when we went 5 months fresh. And part of it is that payroll and the formulas that like Nicole was talking about for police and fire, it takes longer than you realize. And so it's a great implementation, but I agree with you. We're all ready to go on our phone and enter our time.
Well, we're gonna park that excitement for about 4 months, and then we're gonna tap right into that excitement again.
Yeah, that's true. It comes sooner than we all realize because we're gonna have to be part of the process.
Yep,
So, yeah, that's
absolutely. And Martin actually met with the HR team a bit yesterday and was already talking about things to think about and do, given the team won't be arriving until August, September-ish, but there's things we can start preparing for this project, for that phase, excuse me. And I didn't repeat the question. I'm sorry. It wasn't a question, it was a comment, to be fair. Any other questions or comments? Anything else online? Oh, yeah.
Just like stability level depending on positions we have in our, there's certain people that are responsible to oversee all of HR and all of finance. So
Yep.
we would want to have different access versus a regular staff member.
Sure. So the question being, there's folks that have different responsibilities and responsibilities and therefore need different levels of access to the system. Absolutely. It's role driven and we can assign those, and there's ways we automate that provisioning, as we refer to it. So that's not like you have to go into every person and say, oh, change it to this, change it to that. So we can provision that way, and yes, absolutely have different looks. And part of even what I showed, like that initial base employee one, but then that second one, when I was going through the Form 13 replacement, that's different level of access than the standard employee access. So yes. Yeah, please.
Just to add to that, that is a big part of where this engagement comes in from everyone, because that's building the house, right? Once this is done, it works great. The workflows is a click of a button, but there's a lot of work to get there. So we need to work with each of you to see what does that look like. So those are the questions we're going to be asking in your departments. What does the workflow look like? And those are going to be some timely discussions you will need to have and with our team to really design what makes sense for you. But but that's a big component of getting there, right? So the click of a button is easy, but building all that behind it is where we're gonna have a lot of work, and that's all of us putting that together. Any more questions on Zoom?
Thank you, audience.
Yeah, so thank you, everyone. The email is live and ready to go. It is connect@hawaiicounty.gov. If any questions come up, please send them your way. Erin's gonna answer all of them, so. Our team will be there to answer all your questions, but please use that. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you, and we look forward to getting this started.
Thank you, guys.
Together a lot over the next 22 months, so feel free to interact and get to know everyone.